Hello everyone, and welcome to this tier list that I've just made, which is the BALLPIT tier list for every ball and its evolution within the game. And I have played it for, I want to say, something like 20 hours. So I wanted to kind of put together a list here, put it up on tier list or tier maker, and it's in the description if you want to try it for yourselves. But kind of see where I'm at right now, and then maybe eventually I can get to the very top of the of the game, get all the way up to 9+ difficulty and so on, and see how I feel about it at that point. But for right now, this is my tier list of the balls in BALLPIT. All right, and I do have also pulled up back here, we have the encyclopedia, so that I can slip through and see any of the balls, look at the description, look at the damage numbers if needed. But here we go. So I'm going to start with Assassin. We'll just do these in order, I figure. Maybe I'll pop around one way or the other, but we will start with Assassin here. Okay, so Assassin, the whole point of this ball is, and I should note as well, maybe before starting, that there are some balls that are the base versions, some that are evolved. I'm going to take that into account because an evolved ball is going to require a lot more effort to even get, a lot more sacrifice to get, so it's got to be pretty strong to justify itself. There are some that definitely are worth it, but there's also some that aren't, that would be solid as baseballs, but not so good as an evolved version. So here we go with Assassin. Assassin, I'm going to say I want to throw... So Assassin is a ball where it goes through the enemy, comes back out, and stays in the back line and hits enemies that way. It has good damage, and travels through enemies. So I want to say for that one, it's kind of tough. I might put it in A, possibly. A or B. It's somewhere in here, and we'll shift around a little bit if we need to, but I want to say maybe A for that one because it does do very solid damage, and there are two different trinkets that can make it way stronger. So it's a pretty solid one. Not like a run clear. It's definitely not S tier, but it's not necessarily middle of the line either. And there are some evolved balls that are almost outright bad, so I would say this one's definitely not too bad. All right. So, A or B, we'll consider that over time. But let's go ahead and go on to the bleed ball. So, bleed here, we have 3 different characters that you can sort of play as within the game. Bleed is for one of those, is like a main type of a ball. And it has pretty good damage, it has pretty good effects. So, hits an enemy, applies bleed, dishes them out, reduces them down over time. I want to say this one is also pretty strong. Among like the starting balls, I would say it's pretty good, definitely. I don't know if I love all the evolutions, but I definitely don't mind it on its own. So let's see, is it middle of the pack or is it slightly better? That's kind of a tough one. I might say, you know what? I might say it's better, and I might move this one down to here. Yeah, Assassin, I was very much in the middle on. I think Bleed is one of the stronger baseball types. Okay, now let's travel on into Blizzard. So Blizzard here, for those who don't know, I guess, it freezes enemies. So the whole point of this one is to get in there, freeze a bunch of different enemies, and, see if you can win out that way. Slow them down, affect a lot. I'm pretty sure it has like 2 rows. If we click into here, it says 2 tile radius. So as it's traveling across the front of them, it'll freeze them, it'll deal damage. So definitely not a bad one. For freezing, I would say, is it the best one though? I think there's a better freeze area of effect hitter. So I might say I put this one also into A, but it's a high A. I think it's a little better than the bleed. I think it is a little better. Okay, and it might seem like I'm giving every ball kind of a really high ranking right now, but that's because there are some that are just really quite bad. and one of those is definitely Bomb. Bomb has got to be one of my least favorite. I might put it all the way in F even. Bomb it's tough because it does really good damage. So at base it has 100 to 200 damage, which is, it's quite a lot better than these ones in terms of raw damage, but it takes 3 seconds after throwing it for you to be able to throw it again. So that delay is pretty harsh, and I believe when it blows up, it's gone. So we got to wait 3 seconds to use one bomb one more time. Kind of rough. You could maybe combine it, like fuse it with something after to make it stronger and make it last longer, but on its own, I really think it's one of the worst in the game. But all right, we carry on. Let's go ahead and look at Broodmother. So Broodmother here, this one here is It's not bad. It's not bad. Where to put it, though? S, A, B, C, F. Okay. Okay. I might throw this one in... Maybe B tier. Because it's not bad. What do you think? Yeah. It's not bad, but it doesn't do enough damage, I feel like, and you have to get it to the backline or else it's not super useful. So it's sort of like the opposite issue in a way. Like the Assassin. The Assassin's really good if you can get all the right things. Oh no, you're totally good, Tag. Assassin is really good if you can get all the right gear, all the right trinkets to go along with it. But otherwise, it's kind of weak. I feel like similarly, like this one, if you can get to the backline, great. But then you have to have a way to get all things to the backline, which just makes it a little bit weaker. So we'll put it in B for now. Okay. Like these would go really well together, but then you'd also need to have like the cloak, for example, to get it pushed to the back. So kind of a tougher one to make work. All right, fireball, another standard, right? Honestly, fire and rock right next to each other here. I would say both of these are pretty solid. I might even just throw both of them straight into A. Fireball is nice because same reasons as bleed, right? Decent damage and applies an effect to damage down a boss or one of those stronger enemies like that. And Earthquake is pretty strong because it hits a big, broad area. So it's good for crowd clearing. Straight away, I would say both these are super strong. Is it unfair to not put them in S? I think it's okay because there's some things that are just so unbelievably powerful that still have to go there. So we'll say A tier. And I appreciate you popping in, Tag. No worries there. I'm getting my audio figured out, and it's very helpful. Let's go ahead and grab the pod here. So this is an egg sack. The egg sack, you throw it out, it explodes into 3 different mini balls. Are they useful? Do they do enough damage? How do we feel about those things? So I would say probably C tier. Like if I think about F tier as like, you spend all this time, you spend all this effort to get this thing, and then it just sort of screws over your entire build. I would say bomb is fair to put into that, but I would say egg sack, it's one you can grab straight away. So I would say like there is no worse ball than a really bad evolved ball. There is no better ball than a really bad evolved ball, or like a really good evolved ball, I should say. So S and F tier probably going to be mostly reserved for evolved balls. This one, it's bad because it doesn't, like, it's not super effective and it explodes into those three mini balls, and that's about it. So unlike this, the Broodmother, which can hit a ton of enemies and turn into a ton of mini balls, this one's very restrictive. So it's worse than the Broodmother, but it's still better than Bomb. You don't have to do anything to get it, and you can always evolve it later. It's still got its positives going on as well. So, okay, so there is Egg Sack. Now let's move on to the Freeze Ray. Freeze Ray, this is kind of a tougher one. I always feel weird about the rays, to be honest. Holy balls! Yeah, exactly, Tag, exactly. Yeah, I've been working on some videos around this game lately. I wanted to just have a starting position for all of my perspectives on things, and then I'll make a series of streams potentially on the game, as well as some bigger content on it. See how I change over time. But, okay, so Freeze Ray. Freeze Ray. Let's see. I like the freeze effect. It is good, but Freeze Ray, and honestly, you know what? What we're gonna do here, let's take both the rays at once, so I can just make a blanket statement. Rays like this are just, they're not as good. If you combine them with enough things, you could take these and then fuse them later or something, but just in their base, these are just really, they're not terrible, but for the cost for them, you have to get a max upgraded laser. You have to get a max upgraded either frost or poison. I just don't know. I just don't know about the rays. I would say Freeze Ray I'm going to put into C because of the freezing options. You have to get freeze along with like the icicle or something to help there. And so it's a high ask to choose this one over any other freeze option. And then I would say for the poison one, I might throw that one into B tier because the poison effect, you can hit a ton of enemies with this. Like in terms of poison, it's on the higher end of poison, because it can hit a lot of enemies all at once with it. And there's, in my opinion, like the other poison ones, I don't know if they necessarily do as much. I might have to get more experience with them, but that's my feeling right now. It might be B tier. I might lower it later. We'll see. Okay. But let's carry on. the base freeze ball. It feels weird after doing so many evolved balls, but the base freeze. How do I feel about base freeze? The thing with freeze that I would say about the base version is that is that so unfair? Both of the other starting character, we got basically Turtwig and Charmander here. These two are both A tiers. It's weird to put Frost at the C tier, but it's because freeze is all about evolutions. So I feel like well, you know, I might put it at the top of C tier. I feel pretty good about this order here. I think so. But yeah, it's not good enough on its own. It needs to be evolved and combined with things. All right. Frost Flame. Both the effects of the prior ones, but losing out on the combination, the evolution. There's really good Frost evolutions. There's really good Fire evolutions. This one is kind of like middle of the pack for both, in my opinion. So I might take this one and just put it right in the middle. Right in the middle there, B tier. Would I switch it around? You know, I'd probably move it at least in front of this one. But not in front of, well, not in front of this one though. Yeah, this feels all right. This feels all right. Okay. Now we look at Ghost. Now we look at Ghost. How do I feel about Ghost? Very good combinations, I would say. But is it on its own? How good is it? I mean, yeah, it's middle of the pack, upper middle maybe. Upper middle like here, because I would say Broodmother, well, it is really good. I would say Broodmother is kind of tough to make work how I want. Like, you got to get in the back line, where this one's going to go to the back line no matter what. Which makes me think I maybe have to do Win Now too. I have to do Win Now too. Because both these are so similar. They're so similar. But I would say the effect of slowing enemies down might be a little bit more powerful than the effect of Ghost. Ghost is a little bit better for its combinations, I think. They're both pretty good, honestly. Wind and Ghost are like the two vital combining items here. But all right, we'll throw those two into there. Glacier. Glacier. How do I feel about Glacier? That's a weird one. That is a weird one. Because there are, what? We have one, two... Is it two more Frost choices? Maybe I take Glacier and I put Glacier in A tier. Do I like Glacier better than the Blizzard? I don't think so. And I think because it's an evolved ball, the requirements for it to be that good compared against the Bleed, Fire, or Earthquake, yeah, it doesn't quite stack up for the amount you have to sacrifice to get it, I would say. So we'll put it right here in A. It's still better than Assassin, because it's freeze, you know? It's freeze, which is really powerful. It hits a group of enemies, which is really, really solid. So we'll put it in A tier. We'll do A tier there. Now on to Hemorrhage. Hemorrhage, which if you saw the thumbnail, you already know how I feel about Hemorrhage. Hemorrhage is probably the worst. Probably the worst ball in the game. The problem with Hemorrhage, you know what? Let's even look at it. This one I think we have to look at. We have to show, because you might be looking at Hemorrhage and you're like, okay, it's an evolved ball. It has really crazy cool bleed effects. How could it possibly be that bad? So here's my issue with Hemorrhage. 3 stacks of bleed. When hitting an enemy with 12 stacks or more, consume all stacks to deal 20% of their current health. It is nice that it applies so much bleed, but outside of against the boss, it's really not nearly as good. Because, yeah, you could stack it on the boss a ton, and that's pretty solid, admittedly. And you could crush down the boss's health with that 20% as well. But it's just it's just purely bleed. And against most enemies, what this is going to do to you, it's actually like a run ender. That's what I was talking about earlier, is F tier is like run enders, S tier is like run winner. You could think of it. So that's why I have to put it here at F tier, because you hit an enemy with Hemorrhage, it's a super upgraded, powerful ball, and it just hits them, bounces off, and then comes back to your inventory, and you shoot it again, bounces off. Like, you have to get it to either the back line, where it will only hit a few enemies, or the front line, where it'll only hit a few enemies. And at which point, like, how are you supposed to really crush through the crowd? Like, this is an evolved ball. It's supposed to destroy a whole mass of them. So I really don't like Hemorrhage. I really don't. Just for that reason. Now, maybe you could combine it in some way for it to, like, hit a ton of enemies and move through them with Ghost or something. Maybe there's a way there, but on its own, it just doesn't have that ability, and it's just too expensive to justify. It might be worse than Bomb because it only hits one enemy instead of multiple. So it's you could say it's specialized for clearing bosses, but clearing bosses is all about stopping, slowing, and damaging over time, and there's so many better options too. So yeah, it's just, yeah, gotta put Hemorrhage in F tier. Okay, but now we move on to the Holy Laser. Holy Laser. What do I think about Holy Laser? I think this might be the first evolved ball I got where I was like, wow, this is pretty strong. This is pretty strong. This is pretty good. Because it can combine with so many other things. It's like the perfect hit all enemies combined with just about anything and become really strong. And I'll say I didn't put in any past evolved, because you can take evolved and you can fuse it again and make it even stronger than evolved. So, you know, because of that, I would say that I kind of have to lump it, like consider that when choosing the evolved ball. It's like, can it combine with something to make it really, really good? This is already really strong on its own. Maybe A or B tier, but the fact that it's like the universal combined with anything and become unstoppably powerful, I would say I might even put it in S tier. It really is that good, because it hits, and plus it hits every enemy on the map practically. So any amount of freeze, any amount of poison, any amount of bleed, any amount of damage increase even would be fine. It just clears the whole field, and on its own it already does decent damage. So I would put that one in S tier. I wonder if that's controversial. I wonder if it is, but I would put it S tier. Okay. Now we have Inferno. And Inferno, to my understanding, Inferno is like the equivalent of Blizzard, only for fire. And I don't think fire is going to be as good, honestly. I might put this one in somewhere in here in B tier. B tier is going to be so full of things because that's just the name of the game here a bit. But I might say, let me think, maybe like right here. We separate Wind and Ghost a little bit, because Wind is all about slowing and damaging. Ghost is just about raw damaging, but it's like a travel through ball. I feel like I might put Inferno there because it takes a lot to get it. It's not the best fire one, but it's not terrible. And it's similar to Blizzard, only it's about killing the enemy instead of freezing them. I guess you could use fire, but I would say in general that the ice spike is probably stronger than the extra damage from mini balls, but it's a toss-up with that. But I think being able to freeze enemies and like mass freeze enemies and then damage a ton of enemies, like it gets both sides of stopping and damaging when you have the icicle trinket, where for fire it's like it's just damaging. That's all you have to your name. So I would say it's a little bit weaker than the frost there. But don't, I'll have an explanation as to why that's not always going to be the case, right? Because we got something else to work towards, but we'll get there. All right. So now we have Iron Ball. Iron Ball here. Oh, this is an important thing, because I said I wouldn't put an item straight into S. Do I even put it into A, though? Like, my brain is kind of like, okay, the damage of this thing is really seriously good. There's so many trinkets that can make it more powerful. And it's also really good for combining into things. Or fairly good. Maybe really good's a bit strong there, but it's definitely solid. Combining is probably... You know what? Actually, no, that's not it. It's the fact that it's so good in base form, because it doesn't really combine into things that well. Bomb is bad. Assassin's okay. Lightning, yeah, there's something here that are decent. Shotgun, though. Ugh. All right, anyway. I would say Iron Ball on its base form, though, is going to be stronger than some of these other ones. It is a contender for S, because there's not a base ball that does damage like Iron Ball does. And you can put in the back line, and you could get the rubber band that lets it bounce faster and faster every time it bounces. There's some options. There's definitely options, and it doesn't have to be that one. There's a few different options that could just make it so strong. Okay, would I maybe put Iron into S? It's just that it doesn't combine into anything. And I'm trying not to take that into account too much, but like with Bleed, for example, Bleed is a little impacted by that. I mean, look at Hemorrhage. But there's some options. But Iron Ball... I feel like there's just one option for Iron Ball that's even decent. Well, maybe two if you count Assassin. Yeah, maybe. Okay, anyway. We'll put it in A for now. Now we move on to the lasers. So, well, this is a weird one. This is definitely a weird one, because you have the horizontal laser and the vertical laser. Which one to put where? It can be a little tricky. Because horizontal laser, you know, but I really feel like I'm passionate about it. I really do feel like I'm passionate about it. I would say vertical laser, bottom of A. Yeah. Yeah. And I would say horizontal laser. Oh, that's tricky. That's somewhere in B. Somewhere in B for sure. I might put bottom of B. Is that crazy? I might put it in bottom of C. Is that crazy? Let me think about this. This is a weird one, yeah, because I think vertical is really strong because it'll clear you a line, and a lot of the almost every ball type is all about like just dishing out damage. That's what we mainly focus on. I mean, think about it, right? You've got frost, or freeze, I should say. You've got burn, and you've got bleed. All three of these are starting balls. So how do you get in if they really have a good front line? There's not really an option there. It's an immediate solution to that, along with Ghost. I mean, Ghost has its own abilities to that, but it just doesn't do enough damage, where this one could just really clear one entire section for you and let you get in there and start dishing damage. So I think vertical laser is strong. Horizontal laser has the opposite effect of just maybe hit, like you have to get in, then it can start dishing out damage, which is the same as every other ball, right, basically. So it doesn't have that advantage. So I would say probably somewhere in C. A lot of the time it ends up just not having much of an effect. Okay. I think this is... I think it's not fair to put it under Egg Sack, though. I'm torn with these ones. I'll put it here, maybe. Now we look at Leech. Leech. So we know we put Hemorrhage really far down. Leech, I believe Leech is... Oh, is Leech... Bleed meets Vampire? I think so. And so the point of Leech is that it latches on like a certain amount of leeches, and then leeches apply more and more bleed over time. So every time you hit the enemy, it applies a leech, and the leech is adding bleed. I believe that's the focus of Leech. So why don't we go ahead and pull up Leech here? One leech adds 2 stacks of bleed per second with a max of 24 stacks. I do like Leech. I do like Leech a lot more than I like Hemorrhage. And this is what I said earlier, is like Hemorrhage allows you to get down bosses really well. Leech does sort of a similar thing, except that it can apply more and more stacks of bleed, which works really well in bleed. Now, it's not crazy strong. I would still probably say Leech. It's so situational, because how many times do you really need to apply that many stacks of bleed to something? It's so situational. So situational. You know what? Wait a second. It's not Vampire. It's the Bug. That's what I was thinking. It's like, wait, no, it can't be Vampire because we have Vampire Lord still to go. Right. So anyway, it's the Bug. It's the Bug with bleed. So I would say bottom of C, because it's not the end of the road. It opens you up to something kind of cool potentially, but it's kind of weak. It's kind of weak. So we'll put it in C, bottom of C. Without exactly the right components, you know. And there's ways to combine Leech in certain ways that could make it pretty good, like traveling through enemies would be really strong with Leech, I feel like. But on its own, yeah, bottom of C is fair, I think. Now we have probably one of the ones I've used the least, maybe one time. I don't think I've really ever focused on Lightning Rod much. So let's go ahead and look at Lightning Rod and see what we think. A Lightning Rod obtained. Let's see, actually. Yeah, 1 obtained. I really thought, yeah, that I'd only really ever seen this one time, because I don't go looking for it. And it's 2 things that you don't start with, so it's one of those. Plant Lightning Rod into enemies. It hits. Those enemies are struck by lightning every 3 seconds, dealing 1 to 30 damage to up to 8 nearby enemies. That actually seems pretty good. And I did think it was kind of good. This is what I was saying earlier, is if I remember right, Lightning Rod would have been stronger than Assassin. I might say, but it's still not, you know, it's still nothing too crazy. But I might put it like right here, somewhere in A is fine. So Lightning Rod goes there. The point of Lightning Rod, you hit a bunch of different enemies. They have a ton of different Lightning Rods in them. They dish out damage to everyone around them. You could hit the boss a ton of times with it too. It seems pretty good. It's not run changing, but for Metal Ball, it's probably the only one that I would say is like, okay, I could see that. Go down that route. And then we have Lightning. Or is it Storm? No, I think it's called Lightning, and then Storm is one of its evolutions, yeah. So let's see, we scroll up here. Lightning here. Deals 1 to 20 damage to up to 3 nearby enemies. So this is like, like Blizzard or Inferno, except you get it at base, but instead of applying an effect to them, it just does damage. It's pretty good. Where to put it in here as a base ball? I might say top of B tier. I might say top of B tier because it does pretty good damage. It does pretty good damage. It's nothing too insane. It's not as good as the standard, the beginning balls. It definitely doesn't do as much damage as the Iron Ball, but it's pretty decent. And at base, unlike Freeze, at base, Lightning is pretty strong. So I would say up here, compare that against Wind or Ghost. They both have good utility, but mostly in combination. They're not really just out of the gate strong. I think that's reasonable. Okay, and now we get on to Magma. I've been looking forward to this one. I'm looking forward to Magma because I really do quite like Magma. We'll take Magma and throw Magma... I think S tier, but is it better? Yeah, it's better than Holy Laser. Yeah, Magma might be the strongest ball in the game because it creates a ton of different versions of Magma that push forward and hit enemies as it's bouncing. So it clears a whole crowd. It's got Earthquake, so it's hitting into them really hard, but then the additional Magma rolling ball things that go after it, like, it's just very strong. The fire effect, and then this is a weird one, right? Because you might think, okay, well, why not Glacier then? But I believe Glacier... I believe Glacier is worse in terms of the amount of damage output that it has by enough that like Magma can clear things. I feel like it might just be a balancing issue because like logically, I think Glacier should be stronger, maybe. Well, you know, we'll get to a stronger version of Ice still. We've still got more to look at. You know what, actually? No, yeah, we'll carry from here. We'll carry from here. But I do think Magma is really strong. I think it's stronger than Holy Laser. I think it does incredible damage and might just be the strongest ball in the game. But let's go ahead now and look at this one's okay. This one's like Mosquito Lord or something. There's two different Mosquito types here. So let me look at the names of these ones because I haven't had them a whole lot either. These were the last ones I unlocked because I just, you know, it's such a specific thing to go down the route of is Vampire and Bug or Vampire and the Egg's Nest. They're a cool concept, but yeah, I hadn't gone down them too hard. Spawn a Mosquito each time it hits an enemy. Mosquitoes attack a random enemy, dealing 84 to 104 damage each. If a Mosquito kills an enemy, they steal 1 health. Okay, and then that's Mosquito King, not Lord, King. And then Mosquito Swarm explodes into 3 to 6 mosquitoes. Mosquitoes attack random enemies, dealing 84 to 104 damage each. If a mosquito kills an enemy, they steal 1 health. So these are both interesting. These are both quite interesting. So this one, you could hit a ton of different enemies, ricochet all around, spawn a mosquito for every single hit you're getting. They go and guaranteed steal 1 health from every enemy they kill. So the mosquito itself does have to kill, but they have decent damage, so it could happen. Comparing against this one will give you 3 to 6 in 1 burst fire, which might be better. This is a toss-up. So the whole concept here would be: do you want 1 ball to go to the back line and ricochet around a bunch back there, get a ton of mosquitoes that way, give you a decent amount of health gain, or do you want like a 1 pump chance of getting health? I think there's like some potential utility to Mosquito King because it can ricochet around a lot. It's just it takes so long to get it, and healing is not necessarily the easiest thing to give you a ton of like. It's got a chance, okay? It's got a chance, but it's where this one, I think the 1 burst is probably a lot worse because your odds of actually getting kills with that are going to be lower, and then you have to wait for the pod to reload so you can shoot it again. I really do think Mosquito Lord has more potential of just really ricocheting around. You just have to be pretty intentional by the time you get there. Whether you want it to go straight to the backline or you want to be able to clear into the backline somehow. So it's not like it's definitely no S tier. It's definitely no high A tier, but it's not bad. Do I even want to put it A, or do I want to bump it down to top of B? I think we'll keep it an A because I think there is a chance for it to do really well. It's a little situational. Maybe more than a little situational, which I would say is, okay, that's tough. Because then isn't it kind of similar to Assassin? Except that it can heal you, Except it can heal you. I think the spawning of a ton of things and healing together probably puts it in A tier. It's just if you can't get it into the back line, it's going to be tough to make it work. But I might still put it in A tier. Most things in A and S tier are not situational. Like I would say any of these other ones aren't, which makes me a little hesitant to put it in A. So we'll see. We'll see how I feel about this in the long run. But for now, that's my feeling. Is it probably deserves a spot in A. All right. Now we go on to. Hold on. We go on to. So there's 2 different poison options. There's Noxious, and then there's like the standard poison gas, which we'll be putting them both in at around the same time. So where is the other poison? Poison here, yeah. So poison, apply 1 stack of poison on hit. Poison lasts 6 seconds, deals a very tiny amount of damage. But you can stack 5. You can stack 5. Noxious passes through enemies, applies 3 stacks of poison nearby enemies within 2-tile radius. Poison lasts for 4 seconds and deals 1 to 3 damage per second. Okay, per second. Hold on. So, okay, 1 to 4. Instead, it's 1 to 3, but it hits a bunch of stacks on. Yeah, I want to say for this one, Poison's a toss-up between F tier and C tier. I want to say it's like super low C tier because it hits an enemy, bounces off, you collect it again, it does little damage over time, but nothing like bleed. Very little damage. You can stack it a few times, yeah, but very situational. It feels like, not even situational, just bad. It feels like that one is just bad, but it's not run ending because it's an unevolved version. And then I want to say I would feel similarly about this. This is the evolved version, but it can apply a decent amount of stacks. Man, but it's an evolved version. It's so much cost to get this thing to its spot, and there's so many better options. So I want to say we throw Noxious in C, the end of C tier, because it's pretty bad. Here's Sandstorm though. Here's Sandstorm to bring my spirits back up. I thought about putting in an F, but I don't know if this is a run ender. Not like Bomb or Hemorrhage. This is not a run ender. It's just pretty bad. But you could still get. It still has the effect of wind, where you poison a whole field. And there's not a ton of balls that give you that. One of them, though, is Sandstorm. So Sandstorm has the interesting effect of doing pretty good damage and blinding enemies. Blinding enemies means they can't attack you directly. I think if I'm not mistaken, though, Sandstorm is just good in terms of damage. Let's look at that. It's a mixture. Like, blind means when the enemies get into your like really close field, you can get a little extra time to really dish out some damage to them, which feels good. You can get in up close and personal more because they're blind, so they can't attack you directly. These are not bad things. Sandstorm is, let's see. Sandstorm is, gosh, without the colors on these, is a little harder to tell where I'm looking. Sandstorm here. Goes through enemies surrounded by a raging storm, dealing 10 to 20 damage per second and blinding. Yeah, 10 to 20 per second. It's not bad. You can upgrade it some. Blinding for 3 seconds, though, is pretty good because that lets them just sit in your front line and wait to attack you, and then you can just slowly take them out. So I think Sandstorm, it really is the utility of it, not the damage. I always feel like the damage isn't too bad, but 10 to 20 is really not that much. Although it hits a really wide area. It does hit a really wide area. So here we go with Sandstorm. I was thinking about putting this in S tier. Maybe top of A. Top of A or S. It's tough to, it's a tough call because it's definitely strong. You know, we don't have a lot in S. It's really pretty good. I might throw it in S. I think the blinding effect is really, really powerful. And with other things together with it, yeah, it's like a way to make sure you don't lose. So maybe we put an S tier, but do I put it? Oh, but then Holy Laser. So it might seem strange because I put Holy Laser in S and it was a toss-up, I would say, with Sandstorm. But I think the reason I'm going to put Holy Laser below Sandstorm, despite that, is that Holy Laser is better when you combine it. Sandstorm is good on its own. I mean, they're always better if you combine them, right? But I would say Holy Laser kind of needs to be combined to be like super clearly S tier. So I'll put it at the bottom of S. And we get the Shotgun. Oh, Shotgun. Shotgun here. 3 to 7 iron baby balls after hitting a wall. Iron baby balls move at 200% speed but are destroyed upon hitting anything. I remember having this and I thought it was going to be so sick. And it I think I legitimately actually got killed by having it. So I'm going to put it at the top of F tier because I know why I hate bombs so much. I think I don't like Shotgun, but it could be acceptable. I know why I hate Hemorrhage so much. So like Shotgun, it's a lot to sacrifice for something that does a lot less than you might hope that it would. The baby ball things don't do enough damage. They also shatter, and then you have to wait to get the ball back, right? So I want to say top of F tier is fair. Okay. All right. Now we have Wraith. So Wraith here, let's go ahead and pull this back around. Wraith here passes through enemies, saps them, stealing HP and reducing their attack by 20%. So you can only do it one time, which I actually had the unfortunate situation, unfortunate, of having 2 Wraiths, which I was so excited to combine them into one Mega Wraith. like, can you? I don't know if you can, but fuse 2 Wraiths together would have been so cool. Anyway, though, the problem with Wraith at that point is that they can only lifesteal from one. Like once you have 2 Wraiths out there, they're both competing for the same pool essentially, which makes them a lot weaker. So Yeah, but on its own, Wraith is really good. If you can get an upgrade that increases, there's some trinket that makes you stronger for having healed off of something. There's some, I forget exactly with this one, but I know it exists, and the concept with that with Wraith is really strong. But even on its own, the amount of lifesteal you get for this, there's nothing else that is as good as this. I think in theory, in the long run, that the Mosquito Lord or the even, well, no, Mosquito Lord especially, if the game expanded out further and further and eventually you had like this massive amount of enemies, maybe Mosquito Lord could steal more, or like strong enough enemies that it just like keeps stealing from over and over again. I don't know, maybe, but I really feel like Wraith is probably the much stronger option no matter what. And oh gosh, that's tough. It's the strongest lifesteal thing, but lifesteal is just not as strong as raw damage. You can't focus on lifesteal over damage, because if you're stealing life, stealing, at some point the enemy gets so close they start attacking you, they're going to out damage your lifesteal, and you focus so much on lifesteal you can't out damage their health. Yeah. So I would say top of A tier. It's got a lot of potential, but it's not an S tier because it just doesn't have the damage. Okay, so now we get on to this one, the Spider Queen. Chance of birthing an egg sac, which is such a cool concept, right? Because it hits a bunch of them, it turns into egg sacs, the egg sacs turn into mini balls, and you just so quickly fill up the back line. But it's expensive to get to, and so, because you have to have, well, for one, you have to have an egg sac to even get there, right? Which is kind of tough. So I want to say, okay, let me think. Is it better than these? I think for the cost, it's somewhere around Glacier. Because, like, Glacier is pretty good, but there's just better options. And so it kind of hurts to combine Frost with Earthquake. So I would say Egg Sac. But Egg Sac is so bad. So holding on to that is really tough. Oh, that's tough, though. But then the actual strength of the thing itself is really good. So I would say because of how expensive it is, it's worse than Glacier. But because of how strong it is, it's better than the Lightning. Because Lightning can be combined to make, is it Storm? Yeah, is the next one, and Storm is pretty good. So, but that's tough. Is it? So Storm, I believe Storm is actually better than the Lightning Rod, because it travels through enemies and does damage. It's more similar to Blizzard. But a little worse because it doesn't freeze enemies. Is that fair? Trading a little damage for a little freeze. For a lot of freeze. No, a lot of freeze. I would say that's fair. I would say I'd put it right here. And then we move on to, is this Swamp? We've got Swamp here. And Swamp is, hold on. Swamp is not this one. Virus, this one. Leave behind tar blobs over time. So this is sort of like, is this sort of like the Magma, only with tar? Enemies who walk into tar blobs are dealt damage and are slowed. And gain 1 second poison. But poison doesn't deal a whole lot. 1 to 3 damage per second. Yeah, I've only ever had it the one time and I didn't like it very much. I don't think it's like the end of the road necessarily, like an F tier, but I do think it's pretty bad. I would say probably even worse than Noxious there. Yeah, you know, it is what it is. Then we have this one. So Vampire Lord. Vampire Lord's a tricky one. So here's kind of my thought process on this, right? Because we have Leech, we have Hemorrhage, and we have Vampire Lord, and then we have this in the top. This is really how I feel about it. Is Bleed on its own, the ball is strong, it's useful, but combining it with things pretty much only makes bad outcomes. Hemorrhage is really bad. Leech can work assuming you have Vampire Lord, and Vampire Lord can work assuming you have Leech, but not super well because the game doesn't give you enough time. Because you need to be able to have both of these at that level. And that's just hard to get. So I think the two of them are very dependent on each other. But I think Vampire Lord... I think Leech is better than Vampire Lord, though, actually. Because Leech here can apply a ton of leeches. Vampire Lord is all about having so many stacks of bleed on something that you can just steal life from like crazy. So in order for Vampire Lord to even work, it requires Leech. I think that means Leech is probably stronger. On its own, Leech is stronger. On its own, Vampire Lord is weaker. Together, Vampire Lord becomes this really powerful ball that you can steal a ton of health from everything with. But like, what does that mean, right? Like that doesn't that inherently mean Leech is even stronger all the more for that? Like you could bump Leech up even if you wanted. But I don't know. I think I'm good here. They're both C tiers, and I'd rather have an egg sac and maybe even turn the egg sac into something potentially useful down the road than have a Leech. that's like the egg sac already evolved and is so situational. Yeah, I just can't do it. I just can't do it with Leech. All right. We move on to Vampire. Vampire's tricky. Let me think. So I believe, hold on. Yeah, Vampire can turn into the strongest A tier. And that's pretty good. But Vampire can also turn into a lot of weaker things. And you'd have to get exactly what you're looking for that to happen. It could happen though. I mean, Ghost, it's not that unlikely. So that's like its evolutionary path, is we have one good option. And then on the downside, I would say, or not on the downside, but on the personal front, like how strong is Vampire on its own? Decent damage, but bad utility, because its odds of stealing life are really low, to the point where it's almost like a run ender at points. Like you grab this and you're like, okay, now I can turn into this and that thing. You start investing in those directions. Now you have what? Now you have now you have Ghost, which is a B tier, and you have this thing, and both of them can't do anything to anybody because they don't do enough damage. And so you're like hoping, okay, I'll get them both level 3, and then I'll get the Wraith, and then I'll be strong. But it's really hard to make it happen without just dying on the way. And so I would say it's not a run ender, but its only real utility is getting the Wraith, and that's hard to do. And so it can end your run with like bad play or like bad other upgrades, I would say. So it's not as situational as these two, because on its own it has okay damage. Okay, let me think about these. I would say maybe somewhere in mid upper C tier is pretty fair. Okay, now we move on to the last two. So we still have Virus and I think, wait, is that Wraith? No, this is Wraith. Hold on. What is the name of that? No, this is Wraith. Your Soul Sucker. Yeah, Soul Sucker. I don't think I've even seen that name before. I mean, I've definitely used it a few times, but not a whole lot. Anyway, so now we have our last two, Virus and Wraith. So Virus here, apply 1 stack of disease to units it hits, max of 8 stacks. Disease lasts for 6 seconds. Each stack of disease deals 3 to 6 damage. Okay, so it is... Let's see. Disease units have a 15% chance of passing a stack to other characters, which is such a cool concept. A pretty exciting one. Okay, so Virus, it's an exciting concept, and I have actually seen it do well. I would say it's definitely better than Swamp, which is kind of the equivalent version, right? Like you travel into enemies and you apply a ton of poison and whatnot. There's not a lot of really good poison things. Is it better than, let's see, is it better than Freeze? I think so. It has some cool potential. And therefore it's also, we know it's better than this, right? Because laser poison is useful because it can spread it around, really poison a lot of enemies. But well, we know it's not a very strong type, essentially, because all these are so low tier. But this one's a little better than that because it spreads it around without having to, I guess, use a laser, which is so non-specific and misses so many enemies. This one should effectively spread it to the entire crowd, assuming you're fighting like a really grouped together set of enemies. So very bad against bosses, but pretty good against for crowd clearing, which makes it better than all of these because Ghost isn't very good for crowd clearing. Like its utility is kind of low. I would say the Frostfire one it doesn't really good for anything except for maybe fighting the boss, but even then it is better options. So it's better than all those. We move on to these. Let's see. We have Inferno. Inferno's a tough one. Inferno's a pretty tough one because it's got fire, which is, I would say a stronger option in general. But it hits in like a sweeping motion. It doesn't necessarily hit all enemies. That's a tough call. But I would actually, you know what? This is a pretty good spot, middle of B, because I don't think it's as good as Assassin, because Assassin has a lot of options. I don't think it's as good. It's definitely not as good. Ooh, is it as good as the Leech, the Vampire King? Or not Vampire, but Mosquito King? No, I don't think so. I think Mosquito King has a lot of like potential utility. So I would say like right here in the middle of B. And we get to the last one, the final option, which is the Wraith. So Wraith here is all about going into enemies, traveling through them, freezing them as it goes along. So sort of similar to Blizzard, all the way. But it goes, I believe Blizzard actually only hits the front line unless you can get an upgrade to make it travel through. So unlike Blizzard, I believe Wraith should travel through everyone, freeze them all, anyone it passes through, and I think does decent damage. Let me double check that. Maybe it's just freezing, but the utility of this is really high. It's like maximizing for freeze. So let's go ahead and look at that. Wraith here. Oh yeah, no, it is literally just freezing, which is kind of crazy. which is kind of crazy, but it passes through all these different enemies, and then it can be combined into different things, and just so the strongest, maybe the strongest or one of the strongest fusions that I've ever done was to get a Wraith and to fuse that. Let me see. I fused that with the Holy Laser, which was so cool, and it turned into like this: hit everyone on the map, freeze everyone on the map, get the icicle, freeze, and then damage because they're frozen all surrounding enemies, and it just like rip through the entire crowd. So I do quite like I'm partial to Wraith. That being said, I think Holy Laser is good because it can combine with Wraith, it can combine with Magma, it can combine with Sandstorm, it can combine like anything, Poison even, and it'd be really strong. Imagine this with Poison or with Noxious or any of these things. So the potential of this is really high, and on its own it does good damage. I think Wraith is good if it's combined with this thing, which is a little tougher. And I would say, or if it gets specifically the Icicle upgrade, which makes it one of the best. Like, that's one of the best things in the game if you can get that, but it's situational. It's more situational than I would say Magma, Sandstorm, or Laser, which I would say like maybe the top of A. Maybe second to top of A, because I really do. Yeah, these two are both really good. The two Ghost options, which is why although Ghost itself is quite bad, I couldn't put it any lower than B, because it does so well with these two upgrades. But all right, so that has been the tier list. So this is all balls of all kinds, the weakest of them all, the strongest, all put into one spot. Let me know what you think. I do have, again, in the description, I do have it linked to be able to make this for yourself, to give it a try. I built it myself. I took all the pictures, cut them all, put them all into the right sizing, and hopefully it looks pretty good. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. I might return and do this again one more time once I have played it a lot more and gotten more experience, and just kind of see what the differences are between how I think about it now versus then. But anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed this one. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. All right, later on. See you next time.